Today, we will cover the process of soaking off and reapplying the pink and white overlay. The nails here have been growing for about a month, and we will reapply the dipping powder as well as adding on several new designs. If you follow this tutorial step by step, you will achieve a beautiful looking set of nails using the Cachet Dipping Powder. First, you must use the Cachet hand sanitizer before you proceed onto the next step of the application. It is important to sanitize your hands and the client's hands before starting any process involving the Cachet Dipping Powder. After sanitizing the client's hands, start by using the 4X coarse carbide gently above the surface of each nail to remove 75 to 80% of the existing colored powder. Do this with every nail for both hands. Continue by brushing off your client's hands from excess dust and powder. In order to remove the rest of the colored dipping powder, we will continue by using the Cachet remover. This is done by wrapping each finger inside a sheet of 2 by 2 inch foil with a piece of cotton soaked in the removal liquid. Leave it on for up to 3 to 5 minutes, depending on how much color is left on the nail. It is not recommended to use any other methods of removal, such as dipping the fingers completely in acetone or by pouring acetone directly onto the fingers. After all the fingers are completely wrapped, remind the client that they should hold their fingers downward so that the removal liquid will drain down towards the nail and not towards the finger. After 3 to 5 minutes of waiting, remove the foil by gently pulling the foil and cotton outwards. You will notice that the powder is removed. Using a fine sandband drill bit gently above the surface of each nail. This is to clean the nail, removing any leftover powder, as well as pushing the cuticles up the nail so that the powders will adhere properly to the surface of the nail bed. Do this with every nail for both hands. Brush off and continue to trim down and shape the natural nail to the desired length depending on the client's preference. First, apply the prep. Prep, or also known as number 1, contains vitamins and nutrients such as calcium and vitamin E to nourish the nails and promote healthy growth. Apply the prep directly onto the cuticles around the area of nail growth. Today, we will be using the Cachet French White and the Cachet Medium Pink powders for our pink and white nails. Before you start the dipping process, make sure you flip the containers like so, once upside down to loosen up the powder, creating a consistency for dipping. You're ready to open the jars and begin. Continuing on, you will need the base coat, or number 2 liquid. The base coat contains essential nutrients such as calcium as well as vitamin E to provide nutrients to the nails. Make sure that when using the base coat to always pull the brush straight out of the bottle opening. This is to prevent drying and clogging of the bottle opening. Apply the base coat halfway up the nail and then dip into the pink powder to create a foundation before starting the actual dipping process. Afterwards, apply the base coat 3/4 of the way up the nail and then dip into the white powder gently at a 45-degree angle directly in the center of the jar to create that smile or curved line. Bend the finger down and away from the jar while tapping to remove any excess powder. Dip the rest of the nail into the pink powder to complete the layer. The third time, apply the base coat all the way up the nail, making sure not to touch the cuticles surrounding the nail. Again, dip the nail into the white powder, making sure you are lined up with the first curved line. Be sure to tap the finger away from the jar of white powder. Finish by dipping the entire nail into the pink powder. If you notice a small gap in between the pink and white, apply a small amount of number 2 base coat onto the gap and then dip into the pink powder to fill the gap. For the purposes of this video, we will be skipping the ring and the index finger in order to add on a design later in the video. Continue the dipping process for the rest of the nails. Once again, as a reminder, apply the base coat halfway up the nail and then dip into the pink powder to create a foundation before starting the actual dipping process. Afterwards, apply the base coat 3/4 of the way up the nail and then dip into the white powder gently at a 45-degree angle in the center of the jar to create a smile or curved line. Bend the finger down and away from the jar to remove any excess powder. Dip the rest of the nail into the pink powder to complete the layer. For the third time, apply the base coat all the way up the nail, making sure not to touch the cuticles surrounding the nail. Again, dip the nail into the white powder, making sure you are lined up with the first curved line. Again, be sure to tap the finger away from the jar of the white powder. Finish by dipping the nail completely into the pink powder. Fill in any gaps as you see necessary. Finish by brushing off the nails from excess dust and powder. For the design of the ring finger, we will create a V shape or a necklace design. Apply the number 2 base coat halfway up the nail, and then dip into the pink powder to create a foundation. Apply the base coat 3/4 of the way up the nail, and then dip into the white powder at an angle to create a diagonal line on one side. Make sure you have enough powder to cover the sides. Dip into the white powder once again, but on the opposite side to create a V shape with the white powder. Finish by dipping the rest of the nail into the pink powder. Now apply the base coat all the way up the nail, making sure not to touch the cuticles, and dip once again into the white powder on the left side. And again on the right side, making sure you are lined up with the first layer. Finish by dipping the rest of the nail into the pink powder. Using a dotting pen or a marbleizing tool, create a dent in at the points of where the two angles meet to create a dent so that we can add a decorative rhinestone into the area. Fill in the gap between the pink and the white layer using the base coat, and then dip into the pink powder to even out the gap. To make sure the dent is ready for adding on the rhinestone, press a few more times using the marbleizing tool. Moving on to the index finger design, we will be applying 3 colors for this design: pink, white, and the G number 32 blue glitter. Apply the base coat 2/3 of the way up the nail, and then dip into the white powder to create a French or curved line a little higher than you normally would. This is so that you can cut into the white with a pink cutter later in the video. Finish by dipping the rest of the nail into the pink powder. Apply the base coat all the way up the nail, making sure not to touch the cuticles. And then dip into the white powder, lining up with the first curved line. Finish by dipping completely into the pink powder. Remember to even out the gap as needed. Using the pink cutter, cut away the white powder, leaving behind a small stroke or line of white powder. Apply the base coat onto the area that you have just removed. Dip into the glitter, making sure you have enough to cover the entire area. Brush off the excess glitter. Apply a second coat of No. 2 base coat onto the glitter area. Dip again into the glitter gently so that the glitter binds well onto the nail. Brush off again the nails to remove any excess powder and glitter. Continue by adding on the dry coat for No. 3 liquid. Make sure that when adding, apply it onto the cuticle first and then the rest of the nail bed. Be sure to have enough liquid to cover the entire nail. After the application of the dry coat, wait for approximately 30 seconds to 1 minute before applying on the base coat or No. 2 liquid. When applying on the base coat, make sure not to touch the cuticles. The base coat is used to protect and seal in the applied powder. After the application of the base coat, wait for at least 30 seconds before moving on to the next step. Afterwards, file down the nails to the desired shape and size requested by the client, at the same time cleaning underneath the nails as well. After filing down the nails, use a very fine drill bit to smooth out the surface of the nail bed. This process is to remove any bumps or ridges on the nails. After smoothing out the surface of the nail bed, continue to buff the top and the bottom of the nails to smooth out the free edge and remove any unwanted bumps on the nails. After buffing, brush off and clean the hands from dust and excess powder. Continue on to spray the cachet alcohol to sanitize and clean the surface of the hands and nails. Wipe off completely with a clean, hot, or dry towel, making sure that the hands are dry before moving on. Before adding on the dry coat or No. 3 liquid, we will be adding on a decorative cachet thread onto the ring finger nail design. Using the No. 2 base coat, apply a thin layer from one end of the white powder to the other end, following the V shape. Quickly place the thread directly onto the line dividing the pink and white on one side. and then continuing by adding onto the other side as well. Hold the thread down firmly to the edges so that it dries and is completely attached. Apply a layer of dry coat, or number 3, onto the nails, sealing in the free edge of the nails. After applying the top coat, trim off the excess thread attached to the nail as close to the edge as possible. Continue by then cutting the excess thread inside of the nail as well. Quickly apply a layer of the glossy top coat, or number 4 liquid, onto the ring finger. Add in the rhinestone into the slot that you have created earlier. Continue by adding on the top coat onto the rest of the nails. Make sure that the first coat is applied on quickly so that the brush does not dry out. The second coat can be more detailed, covering the entire nail bed. Make sure to seal the free edge carefully to ensure the longevity of the nail. Keep in mind that the second time of adding on the top coat to avoid applying directly onto the rhinestone. Using a fan or by air drying, let the nails dry for approximately 2 minutes before moving on to the next step. After the top coat has dried, continue by using the Cachet cuticle oil, which contains essential nutrients such as vitamins A and E. Remember to brush the cuticles of the nails only. This process is to soften the cuticles and promote growth, and to provide nutrients to the nails. Remember that with the Cachet cuticle oil, always to massage upwards towards the finger and not towards the nail. After finishing up the last step, your client now has a beautiful set of nails using the Cachet Dipping Powder. Using the applied methods, you can achieve the desired look using the pink and white set reapplication with tips and design. For more information, visit us at www.cachetdp.com or call us at 561-358-0026.